this is Ben Morrow, musician to the stars. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my tips and secrets from my many years of playing with the stars. Today we're going to be going through a couple basic chords, C major and G major. Let's get right to it. C major looks like this. You got your third finger on the third fret of the fifth string. You got your second finger on the second fret of the fourth string. Got your first finger on the first fret of the second string. Now we are going to strum from the fifth string down to the thinner strings. So the fifth string down to the first string. We're going to avoid playing that sixth string. Okay, in the beginning, it's just best to think about avoiding it. Eventually, you're going to be trying to mute that lower string. You're trying to just barely touch that lower string so it doesn't ring out when you strum all the strings. But let's start with the fingers that we are playing notes on. So you want to get a good curl in your fingers. And when you're first starting off, you know, it's a little tough to get that curl. You're going to have to kind of bring your arm around. You're going to have to kind of do whatever you can to get those fingertips to press down on the strings. I like to think of it as little hammers that are pressing down on the strings. So the other tricky part is you're going to want to only play the notes that you're trying to play, okay? And what I mean by that is this third string and the first string need to ring. So they just need to vibrate. We have no fingers on any of them. We call it open string. Okay, so this is an open string chord because it has two open strings in it. So what can happen sometimes is if you don't have a good curl in that second finger, it can kind of lean in to that third string, and then you get a muted sound, okay? Instead of a nice note ringing out, it's a real muted sound, okay? And you don't want that. Also, the first string, if you end up, your first finger is on the first fret of the second string, if it ends up kind of leaning in to that first string, same thing. It's going to be muted, okay? And then you're not going to get that note to ring out. So those are just a couple things that you may run into. And it just takes time in the beginning. It just takes a little bit of time, but eventually your fingers are going to have muscle memory and it's going to get easier and easier and it's going to be a lot of fun. So hang in there. So again, third finger, third fret of the fifth string, second finger, second fret of the fourth string, first finger, first fret of the second string. And I'm going to be strumming from the fifth string down. Okay, sounds like this. Okay, great chord on the guitar. You're going to be using it all the time. The next chord I'm going to take you to is G major. G major, it's going to look like this. So we're going to have our third finger on the third fret of the sixth string. We're going to have our second finger on the second fret of the fifth string. Then the fourth, third, and second strings are going to ring. So these are open strings. They're going to ring out and vibrate. The tricky part, especially when you're a beginner, is I'm asking you to put your pinky on the third fret of the first string. So, and you're going to strum all the strings. Now, I know that the G chord can be tough for beginners. So what I'm going to tell you is, if you want, you can just kind of play the bottom of the chord, so the thicker strings, and just avoid playing that top string at the moment. So that's a good way, good little workaround if you can't get that pinky, if that pinky isn't quite strong enough yet. Another thing you can do is you could use your second and your first finger. Okay, this is kind of like a beginner way to play the G chord. I wouldn't really recommend it. There is a version of a G chord that I'm going to teach you in a lesson coming right up that is very similar to this. So it's good to learn. So you'd have your second finger on the third fret of the sixth string, first finger on the second fret of the fifth string, and then your third finger up here on the third fret of the first string. And again, if you have trouble getting that in the beginning, you can just play the bottom string. Still sounds like a G major chord. We just don't want that top string to be ringing out open. But again, I'm hoping that you will try this G that I'm teaching you here. Okay, it might be a little hard in the beginning, but I think it's the best one to learn in the beginning. And I'm going to show you a concept right now that's going to help you change in between chords, which is really the big hurdle you got to get past in the beginning. So again, let's go back to our the way I want you to play it. Third finger, third fret of the sixth string, second finger, second fret of the fifth string, and then that pinky, the fourth finger, on the third fret of the first string. Okay, it's a great chord. You have actually 3 open strings, so it really sounds nice. Here it is. Okay, you'll use that all the time. So the trick that I'm going to show you is changing in between C and G. Now this is a very common move. Many times if you're playing a G chord, many times a C chord is coming right after it. Or the other way around, if you're playing a C chord, a G chord is coming very quickly right after it. So the trick that I'm going to show you is try to keep this shape of your third and second finger, try to keep that shape when you're changing, okay? So in the beginning, what happens sometimes when you're a beginner, you end up trying to lift your fingers way off the guitar and then put them back down in the right spot. And then lift them way off the guitar, put them in the right spot. But what you can do, what you'll start to find is you don't have to lift your fingers that high. And especially if you have like a little shape like this that you can keep in between 2 different chords, it really helps. It's like a little anchor. So if I'm playing the C, I have my third finger and my second finger have this little diagonal shape, and it's adjacent strings. It's the 5th and the 4th string. You know, this one's on the 3rd fret, this one's on the 2nd fret, so it's a little diagonal shape. Now, I want you to take that same shape and just move it over this way, across the strings this way, so you have your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret, 6th string, 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string. And you still have that little diagonal shape, okay? Then for the G, you'd have to lift your 1st finger and add your pinky. So now when I go back to the C, again, I'm trying to keep that shape. I'm trying to keep my fingers as close to the strings as I can. You don't have to lift them up high. In fact, you know, it's almost like they're sliding. Like they always kind of, they don't really lose touch with the string. You have to lift them a little bit, of course, to move them, but you don't have to lift them that much. So this is a good little tip to think about when you're practicing changing in between these chords. So let me show you again. So you got the G. Got this little diagonal shape. When I'm playing the C, that shape stays the same and just jumps over a string each. Okay, so instead of on the 6th and 5th string, now that shape is on the 5th and 4th string. And of course, you have to add that 1st finger. That's your C chord. Okay, you go back to the G. Your 3rd finger's, you know, that shape is right there. And again, you should be able to change. Eventually, you're going to be able to change quick in between those chords. Okay, and again, if you see, I'm not lifting my fingers off the strings very much. They're staying right there. I'm only lifting things as much as I need to. Okay, it's like an economy of motion that's going to help you out a lot. And I know in the beginning you want to start learning songs right away, and we definitely will learn some simple, easier songs on the guitar using these chords. But in the beginning, I encourage you to take groups of 2 chords and practice changing in between them. That's the hard part, okay? So little song, this is a song we're going to do with just 2 chords. It's going to be 2 measures of C, 2 measures of G. So 1 measure in this case is going to be 4 beats. So we're going to strum down on each beat, and 2 measures would be 8 strums, okay? So you'd have your C chord, you do your 8 strums, 1. Now you're going to have to stop, make that little change to the G chord, and then do 8 strums on the G chord. So 2 measures on that one. And then we're going to loop it. Okay, so we're just going to keep going. 2 measures of C, 2 measures of G, and after that, 2 measures of G, right back to 2 measures of C. Okay, I'm going to count us off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, you know, you got to take some time to get that C chord. Stop for a second, make the G chord. In the beginning, you're going to have to, you know, make that little stop for a little bit, make sure your chord is good. Another thing that you should think about too, when you're playing the chord, check it to make sure all the notes are ringing out. So play 1 note at a time. Okay, and on the G chord, you can play each note 1 at a time. And when we're strumming and we're playing our 2-note song, eventually you're going to be able to just keep that strum going and not stop, okay? And if you're not lifting your fingers up too much, you're doing economy of movement, you're going to be able to change fast with the left hand, and you're just going to keep this right hand going like a pendulum. Okay, I'm gonna show you that a little bit. So here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I kept my pendulum going. Kept that arm going. There's no break. Great, okay, this has been a good introduction. It's been a little song, C and G, so play those back and forth. If this video is helpful, if you liked it, please like the video, please subscribe to my channel. Please keep an eye out for the Guitar Warrior comic book, which is coming soon. Please follow the Guitar Warrior on social media. If you're looking for private lessons, go to my website, benmorrow.com. And that is how you shred on the guitar.